Okay, let's dive into this. When you think of iconic characters, well, Tony Montana from Scarface, he's absolutely up there, unforgettable.
Oh, definitely. That swagger, the lines, he's huge in pop culture.
Right, the sheer force of will climbing to the top. But the analysis we're looking at today presents his story, well, with a very specific angle.
It does. It's interesting because while he's this, larger-than-life figure, the film itself, or at least how this source interprets it, isn't really celebrating him.
Exactly. So we've got this excerpt analyzing the film, and it pretty much immediately frames Tony's journey as something darker.
Much darker.
So our mission here is basically to unpack the core message from this specific analysis, what it says about ambition, that lifestyle, and the ultimate cost. And we're sticking strictly to what this source tells us.
And what jumps out right away is how this analysis labels Tony's story.
Hmm.
It calls it a brutal, unglorified cautionary tale. Straight up.
No mincing words there.
None at all. It cuts right to the chase about the lifestyle, calling the drug trade itself inherently a self-destructive trap. Despite how appealing it might look at first.
Yeah, that initial allure. And the analysis traces it back, right? He arrives as a Cuban immigrant with nothing. And his rise isn't through, like, hard work in the usual sense. It's described here as a twisted version of the American dream.
A very twisted version. The analysis really emphasizes that his climb is fueled purely by violence, betrayal, and street-smart cunning.
He didn't build things, he took them. That's the picture painted here.
And that's where the analysis highlights this stark contrast, the allure and the cost, as it puts it.
Right, you see the surface stuff, the mansions, the power, all that cash,
Yeah.
the glamour, it's undeniable.
But this analysis is very clear. Look underneath that surface, and what you actually find is deep-seated rot.
The rot. That's where this analysis gets really compelling, I think. It points straight to the crippling paranoia,
The crushing isolation.
the coal of addiction, the constant escalating violence.
Yeah. It even calls Tony's famous motto, the world is yours, a kind of bitter irony.
Bitter irony, yeah. Because according to this analysis, he gains the world technically, but loses every meaningful human connection doing it.
Exactly. The higher he climbs, the analysis suggests, the more his own, paranoia and his inability to control his impulses just pushes everyone away.
Which inevitably leads straight to his collapse.
Well, yeah. What we're reading here highlights that the very foundations of that specific kind of street life, especially when you get to that kingpin level, are inherently shaky.
Makes sense. Trust is impossible. Loyalty is just bought.
Right. And any kind of peace is always under threat. Constantly.
So in this view, his end isn't just bad luck or circumstance. This analysis pins his downfall directly on his own character.
It does. It points to his refusal to bend, that absolute inability to control his impulses, and maybe that blinding belief in his own invincibility.
He was basically destroyed by the same things he used to get to the top.
That's the argument here. And if you connect that to the bigger picture this analysis is painting, it's positioned as a very stark cinematic reminder.
A reminder of what, specifically?
Of the inevitable endpoint of that path. It explicitly says that a street life driven by drugs, ego, and violence is pretty much a fast track to self-destruction.
Okay, so the absolute core takeaway, the message this analysis is really hammering home, is that even if you make it in that world,
You rarely get to keep it.
right, it argues that this kind of lifestyle takes more than it ever gives. Things like, peace of mind.
Genuine trust, family.
And, yeah, ultimately your own life.
This analysis really doesn't pull any punches. Its final message seems to be a powerful summary. Scarface, viewed through the lens of Tony Montana's story, works not as some kind of roadmap to success, but as a definitive warning.
Okay, so distilling all that from this specific source, Tony Montana's journey is laid out here as the ultimate cautionary tale. It's about unchecked ambition playing out in the brutal setting of the drug trade.
His violent rise, that huge gap between the shiny outside and the internal decay, the paranoia, the isolation.
And then his inevitable, really lonely fall. It's all presented as proof of the self-destructive nature of that path he chose.
It's a powerful argument this analysis makes about the devastating personal cost when you pursue power above, everything else.
Which kind of leaves you, the listener, with this thought to chew on, drawn directly from this analysis. What does it really mean for ambition to cross that line, to become unchecked? And maybe more importantly, what are those real fundamental things like trust, connection, maybe even just peace that this source argues are inevitably lost when power becomes the only goal?